Episode 3 of Off-Season Radio. Welcome once again. My name's Paige Cardona and I'm joined by Damon Jackman. How are you, Damon?
Not too bad, Paige. How are you?
I'm very good. And, of course, Matthew Joyce. How are we, Joycey?
Not too bad. Much happier now that Carlton's out of the finals.
Yeah, well, that's it. We've got something to celebrate about, I guess. None of us are back in the finals. We can just enjoy the TAC Cup now. So, but we'll be talking about that later on. And tonight we've got a good episode coming up. We've got Mitch Harvey from North Adelaide. We've got Dwayne Wilson from Sturt, both from the Sandfell there. We've also got Phil Crooks as a special guest from TAC Cup Radio. So it'll be a big show. Obviously, keep in tune for that one. But
yeah,
we're going to
a few list assessments.
We have, and that brings us to our very first one. We're talking about Brisbane to start off with. Now, the Lions, haven't they had an interesting year? They won the pre-season cup. We thought they were going to be a really good outfit this year, but they struggled from early on, and they got, demoralised by the Western Bulldogs, who were rebuilding. So that was a big shock loss for them. They did, however, lose 8 of their first 11 games with only wins over the Gold Coast and Melbourne. So that really probably already defined their season. But they did storm home to win 7 of their last 10, and they beat Geelong and Essendon along the way, and almost scored a finals berth had Ryan Lester kicked that goal in that final game against Geelong. My cousin, good on you, Ryan.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. He's definitely got my luck. But look, the emergence of Irish import Pierce Hanley at Future Star, absolutely fantastic. Stiff to miss out on AA. But look, they won the same amount of games as they did in 2012, but it's just probably just the way they finished in 2013 that I think is probably something to look forward to.
Do you think, after the hype of winning the pre-season competition, do you think that shock loss against the Dogs really deflated them for the first half of the year?
I reckon so, but I think at the same time they probably had a lot of unfortunate injuries to a lot of their main players. So you got Clay Beams who suffered an ACL injury early on. Then you had guys like Merritt, Maloney, Jonathan Brown, Maguire. So you're looking at these players who were injured throughout the entire season, and sometimes at the same time. Yeah. So, and for me, they were so reliant on their older stars, and the younger guys didn't really step up as much as they should have.
They've got the best 22, but they don't have the depth yet.
There's no depth there at the moment.
Yeah. And with the sacking of Voss, which was a bit strange, I suppose before their run of form, the last half of the season, I guess, when they were winning those games, you could justify it, but after it kind of makes them look a little bit silly, don't you think?
They shot themselves in the foot. They had Ross Lyon completely tied up.
You mean Paul Roos?
Sorry, Ross Lyon. Paul Roos completely tied
that
up.
Would be a shock.
Jeez, it could happen again. Yeah. They had Paul Roos tied up, and that's why they sacked Voss so quickly and unexpectedly the way they did, and it was vicious and it was silly. And now off field, they've got no senior coach. They're going to have a complete overhaul of their CEO and president and all of that because it's a debacle off field. And obviously with Lee Matthews coming back to the club and saying, that's it, I'm taking ownership here, get out of my way. And what they're going to have to do is seriously recruit a ballsy coach who's going to have the guts to make some tough calls and some big decisions and also reshape their off-field administration department.
I found it quite hilarious when I think he featured on the Channel 7 panel of one of the Friday night games, and he was asked if Brisbane asked him to go back and coach again, happen if they don't get another coach in the meantime, would he go and do it? And he's like, well, it's kind of like when you break up with your girlfriend and she's moved on and found someone else and falls back on you. You don't want to be the second hand option.
You don't want to be the fallback, of course not.
Yeah.
It'd be a guy of his integrity and. I don't think that would ever have been an option. And he's good enough now to make his way into the Melbourne scene and either look at... There is reports that he has signed with Collingwood as an assistant coach to Nathan Buckley, which would be huge for Collingwood. But if not, he's going to be highly sought after because a player of his calibre does not go unnoticed.
And just on next year, I mean, what have the club got to look forward to in the trade and free agency period as well as the draft?
Well, if you look at the free agency period, they need a big hulking forward to take over from Jonathan Brown post his era or while he's on the sidelines and injured. So someone like Stuart Camry or Scott Gumbleton would be highly sought after and they'd be on their wish list, but they're going to find it a bit difficult to get Camry given his affiliation with McCartney at the Western Bulldogs and the offer they've got in front of him. But the other issue for them as well is that, you've got guys like Aaron Cornelius and Jordan Lyle who are those big key position players but haven't really grown or developed into that position. They're still a while back. And then you've got guys like Burke, who basically was on their rookie list at the end of last year. He's a development player, as is big Michael Close, and he was a very, very good player last year, but will need time to develop into the role. But when you're talking about what they've got to give up, I mean, Jared Polek, who's a former number 5 pick, is out the door. He wants to go back to South Australia. Patrick Karnesis as well has been heavily linked with Collingwood. The reports that he was actually touring the facilities at Collingwood today. Billy Longer and Sam Doherty also reportedly wanting moves back to Melbourne. And then all of a sudden you've got Brent Staker as well, who's toured the facilities at Carlton. And to put that in a nutshell, the 2010 draft, the first 2 picks were Polek and Karnesis. The 2011 draft, their first 3 picks were Longer, Doherty and Yo, who were all looking to head back home. Now, that's 5 seriously good, talented players that are going to be the figurehead of the next generation of the Lions. And if they lose all 5 of them, even 4, it is going to put them much further behind the 8 ball than where they're at the moment. You can't recover that. The only upside you can look at is that they'll probably acquire some good-ish players, but probably more draft picks because they really want to acquire those academy boys in the national draft.
Yeah, and I think it'll be really dependent on who ends up being the coach of them. I think that'll be the final straw, whether they decide to leave or stay, because, the club doesn't really have much bargaining power at this time. If you've got all these players that are saying, I want to leave, I want to go home, especially with Polek's case, I think he just wants to go to Port Adelaide. So you really don't have much leverage at the trade table, which is not good for the Lions.
And it's interesting for Port because they're quite a settled side at the moment and they don't really have anyone they want to be trading. They've really galvanised under Ken Hinkley.
Yep. And
I don't see any of their best 22 looking to go anywhere or even to Brisbane. So it could be the scenario that, it could be a Cripps scenario last year that he walks out and they acquire him for nothing. So,
or even, you were mentioning that Brisbane were looking for one of those big hulking forwards. I mean, one of the Stewart brothers, I think it's Daniel Stewart, the big tall forward. I think he's got a lot to offer if he gets an extended one at AFL level. I mean, Jay Schultz is doing a great job. So obviously he can't really...
He could be one, but I don't really see him as that key lead up forward, the answer to the next generation.
Yeah, he's no Jonathan Brown, but I think it'll give them a target.
Look, it definitely will, and it helps going inside 50. But I mean, when you look at what they're going to target in the draft, and for mine, I think Brisbane could throw a few curveballs here. Now, one player who I think would fit this club to a T, but I think paying overs for him here, it'd be Cameron McCarthy from WA. Now, that's saying that they're going to take him at pick 7, which I don't think McCarthy's worth that. He's probably a higher first-round pick into the second round. But, I mean, look, he's an explosive tall forward, excellent leg speed and marking ability overhead. Wins the ball both on the lead or in a contested situation and keeps his feet well. Obviously, he booted 12 goals for WA through the champs and it was in the All-Australian side as well.
If they're wanting to pick him up, they would have to get in before Fremantle's first pick. Because,
well, Freo will take him. Yeah. They've already committed to him.
Yeah.
They've basically told him that they believe that he'll be available for their first pick, and for Freo, he's going to be the answer to Pavlich. So, and he's a local lad as well from WA. And then, obviously, although that'd probably be a good scenario for the Lions to get McCarthy, the player I really think that's going to end up at the Brisbane Lions now is Ben Lennon from the Northern Knights. Obviously, he's that medium-sized midfielder, but we've seen through the TAC Cup finals, he's made that transition through the midfield and he averaged 20-odd disposals through the midfield, 8 inside 50s, which is ridiculous, and a couple of goals a game. So when you're looking at that sort of player, a bit of a Sam Mays type. Sam Mays started off a half-forward flank, can go through the midfield. Ben Lennon's basically a carbon copy, just a bit more stronger to play a lockdown forward position.
I think they need someone like that as well, especially with Simon Black on there. I think he's agreed to an extra year at the moment, but with him going, I think it leaves a major hole in their midfield. With Mays, I mean, he's started his first year, and they need someone else to step in there as well. With Rich, Rich is up and down, but needs to be a little bit more consistent in his game.
And who else have you got maybe in the later stages of the draft?
Well, it's probably more about, look, the first round pick is done and dusted, but it's more about what they're going to acquire over the second, third and fourth rounds. And for those who are aware, and the Brisbane Lions supporters out there would be, the academy system that they have got this year, this is where the Lions are going to probably come out number one in the draft. Now, if they acquire these guys, you've got someone like Isaac Conway, who's the captain of the Queensland team this year. He's an elite midfielder, solid build, fantastic at the stoppages and a tackle machine. Takes over that Simon Black role in a heartbeat. One of my favourites, Kane Tickner. He is a Ben Reid type, Harry Taylor type, if you will. Plays either end of the ground and plays it with justice. He can go forward or back, and he's an AFL AIS member. Very, very elite prospect there. Aidan Rutledge, who's probably one of the best utilities in the country. Elite disposal, elite running game, plenty of speed, very agile, and he's a brilliant mark. And my favourite out of all of them is Jonathan Freeman, and this is where their forward line comes into effect. 198 centimetres. And he's 90-odd kilos. He's like a Jeremy Howe. He flies. He loves to take massive grabs. Terrific leap. Excellent hands. Safe as houses on the lead. And from a set shot, you mark it down before he's even picked up the ball to kick it from a set shot. He's the most exciting prospect for me. Those four guys in particular are going to be so good for the Lions, especially with all this elite talent coming out.
So you would think that if they did trade these players, obviously the ones that want to leave, they would be wanting to go for other players rather than draft picks, because those guys are basically locked in. They can just say, we want this player, and they've got him.
Well, that's it. The hardest part for them is that although they want to be able to acquire draft picks and get some good talent, the reality is that this draft isn't that deep. Unless they're going to acquire picks in the first two rounds, then they really haven't got any bragging rights to come out from what they've got. If they acquire a couple of guys that are in that third to fourth year in the system, where they've still got that pre-seasons under their belt, that match hardness and all that sort of stuff, that's where they're going to benefit. But if they're going to just go straight out for draft picks, it's going to be a bit of an issue, and you can't replace that.
Yep.
And look, coming up next, we're going to speak to a big key forward from North Adelaide Football Club. It's Mitch Harvey, and we'll see what he's got to say about his season and his hopes for the rest of the year. And next up, we're speaking to Mitch Harvey from the North Adelaide Football Club. Mitch, firstly, thanks for joining us.
No worries, guys. Great to be here. Cheers.
And look, firstly, congratulations on the invite to the National Combine. You must be absolutely rapt with that.
Yeah, look, it's a real honour to be selected to go, and I'm looking forward to it. Been doing a bit of training for it, so it's a real honour in my footy career, and hopefully you can do okay over there. So yeah.
And you've had a pretty big year between school footy and Sandfell footy. How have you found the balance between the two competitions this year?
Yeah, obviously I've been mixing and matching a bit with teams, but I've been used to that over the past couple of years, so it's been nothing too different. But it's been an interesting year. We really had a really successful season for school footy, winning our first intercol against PAC in 8 years, and also a really successful season at North Adelaide in the SANFL, entering the final series now. So it's been a real whirlwind, but really enjoyable at the same time. So yeah.
And speaking of St. Peter's, now you're co-captain, that's correct?
Yeah.
Alongside,
was given that job. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're also co-captain with Riley Knight, and in the Messenger Shield it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the competition. Yeah,
yeah,
me and Knight.
What's that experience been like for you, especially from a leadership point of view?
Yeah, I really enjoy being a leader. I've always really strived to be a leader through all my teams, and it was a real honour to be given that with NIDA, and I think we did a right job. But throughout the year, just to improve from last year and improve as a team, and to help guide some younger players, I really enjoyed that role and that job. So it was a really, really enjoyable experience, and learned a lot from Coach Darren Trevina, and hopefully can take that into the future. So it was good.
And South Australia took home the national championship this year, and you would have only been born when they had their last one back in 1995, I think. Yeah.
I was born in '95, so it's been a while.
And what was that? The hype there would have been pretty good. Now, what was it like being part of that title-winning team? Obviously, there's been such a long drought there for South Australian football for such a long time.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Again, to break that drought was just fantastic. A real credit to Sticks as well as a coach. He's been coaching for a while now, and he really deserved it. And as a bunch of players, a really great bunch of blokes who really worked hard right from the summer with the academy stuff, and really worked hard on improving and gelling as a team. And to break that drought and win the title was just an amazing experience. And I think if you talk to any of the players, we really learned a lot and really developed our own games, and playing on the big stage was really, really enjoyable. So I got a lot out of that, obviously. And it's just great to look back on it. We just had our presentations on the weekend, and great to look back on it with all the boys, and you make lifelong mates after those sort of events. So that was great.
And who would you say that you learned the most off this year? Was it your coach? Was it a couple of different players? Who was it?
Yeah, probably, as I said, Sticks has been a great help to me in terms of just working on little things with my game and making me a better player individually. But all the assistant coaches, Jason Blair, Peter Fitzgerald, had a lot to do with me over the state carnival. And obviously back at North with Josh Franco and Tim Weatherald in the seniors and the under-18s back in the SANFL have been a great help. And obviously back at school footy, Darren Trevina, who's been involved with Port and Brisbane, he's got a great knowledge of the game. So everywhere I go, I've been blessed with great coaches, and they've really helped me improve this year, which I couldn't thank them enough for, really.
And your game against New South Wales ACT would have been highly encouraging. You know, you kicked 4 goals, took 6 marks, and had 12 disposals in a big win over the Rams. How did that game stack up for you?
Yeah, obviously, we sort of started slower in that game than we expected, and we picked up the pace. But individually, I was quite pleased with my performance. But we had a long way to go, and to start the carnival was great. To kick a few goals, but you go back through the vision during the week, and there's stuff you can always improve on. So yeah, it was great to start well against New South Wales, and they're a really good outfit with some good players, and so I was pretty pleased to go all right and then take some form through the champs. So yeah.
And not many people know, but you did have a near-death experience after a slam dunk went horribly wrong last year. Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah, it was actually just towards the end of the pre-season, late February in 2012, and it was just we had a training session on a Sunday morning and was with a few mates, just playing a bit of basketball at the local basketball court, and it was a really unfortunate accident. We were just leaving and just did one last slam dunk, as you do as a teenage boy, just to see if you can do it, and unfortunately, just landed really awkwardly on my wrist, and hurt my wrist badly, and unfortunately was unconscious and had to go into hospital for a week with bad concussion, and had to miss three months of footy, which set me back a bit last year. But that's all part of footy. I mean, that's uncontrollable, and I just had to come back from that, work even harder, and I'm glad that that's over. But yeah, it was a pretty daunting experience for mum and dad as well. So.
Yep. And you said the injury set you back. Were there any side effects?
No, I just had to for the majority of last year. I had to wear a helmet while playing footy, and I was something different. But it was just what you have to do. So no, nothing other than that. I've recovered fully. So. Yeah, it was great thanks to all the people that helped me there.
It's good to hear. And your uncle is former Adelaide and now Collingwood recruiter Matt Rendell. Has he had any wise words of wisdom to give to you ahead of the draft this year?
Yeah, Matty's been a big help this year. He obviously was watching a bit of the champs and gave me some great feedback. Told me what I did good. Told me what I needed to improve on, and he's told me what I need to work on for draft camp and just general footy and making sure I do all the right things. So he's been a big help this year, and hopefully into the future as well.
And you've got some great key attributes to your game, you know, your contested marking, good agility, good set shot, and really good with your leading. But how have you found developing as a relief ruckman, especially, you know, with the substitute rule at AFL level? You had a great job with that when you were against Michael Apnes, against Vic Metro in the Champs. But how have you found developing that throughout the year?
Yeah, throughout all my junior footy, I played a lot of ruck, and I really enjoyed playing in there. So I really enjoyed playing that forward ruck role and having a bit of an influence there. And obviously with the AFL footy changing now next year with the small amount of interchange rotations and you need more versatility in your players. So to add like another stem to my game, being able to ruck and hopefully maybe in the future being able to go down back or play in other positions would be really handy. And to add the ruck role is really handy for me to make sure I stay influenced all the time in the game. So yeah, to be able to do that throughout the Champs was very, very pleasing for myself. Yeah. And
you obviously you've got a great bunch of key attributes, but what would you say the weaknesses of your game are so far?
Yeah, definitely. There's I need to continue to work on my aerobic capacity, my work rate throughout the games. I mean, forwards these days, and ruckmen have to work just as hard as anyone else. So always working on my fitness and my running capacity, and under that comes defensive pressure and just working on my tackling and what I'm doing without the footy. So all those things have come under consideration throughout the year, and I often do a little bit of extra during the week to improve that sort of stuff, and working on improving my running and hopefully in for a big pre-season. So yeah, it's there's always stuff to work on, and always learning new stuff at training from coaches and stuff. So those things I mentioned before are probably the key ones that I'm trying to get a bit better at.
Just speaking about aerobic capacity there, you've been invited to the National Combine, obviously. Have you set yourself a goal for the beep test or something like that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. My beep test, my 3K time trials probably needed to improve from the pre-season, and I've been working on them a lot throughout the season, and I'm probably setting myself a goal to aim for between 12.5 and 13 in the beep test, and been working steadily at that, and hopefully be able to achieve that at the camp, and throughout all the other tests. As I said, you need to be able to be a real versatile player, so hopefully be able to impress on all of them, and just comes down to real hard work, really, and just making sure you keep on top of all what you're doing outside of footy, and making sure you're eating right, and making sure you're training hard to ensure you don't lose any fitness or anything like that. So yeah, hopefully aim for about the 12.5, 13 in the beep test, and about 11 to 11:30 in the 3K time trial. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you could compare yourself to a current AFL player, who would that be?
Probably I watch Kurt Tippett a lot, and he's probably a player who is a similar sort of build. Obviously, he's a lot stronger than me and a lot fitter, but watch him closely, and he does a bit of ruck work as well, and just watch the way he goes about it. He's a real strong marking player, can mark on the lead as well, and he's good below his knees. So yeah, I've been watching him since he's been playing for the Swans, and taking notice of him. And there's also a player up at Gold Coast, Charlie Dixon, who who's a bit younger, and he's a real competitive player. And I've taken a few things out of his game where I can improve mine. He's really good at tackling, and his defensive pressure is outstanding. So I've been watching those two players pretty closely all throughout this year, and just learning a few things off them. Yeah,
sure. And last but not least, what team do you currently follow in the AFL?
Yeah, from being from Adelaide, I'm a Port Power supporter, so it's been good to watch them this year. They really surprised me, but hopefully a big win this weekend against Geelong.
And have you been giving it to your mates that go for the Crows?
Yeah, big time. We love all the boys at North and at school. We take footy really seriously, so we've had a fair bit of banter this year, which is great. But yeah, good to see the Power go well, and the Crows unfortunately miss out.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Mitch. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us on Offseason Radio. And
No worries, Paige.
fingers crossed we'll hear your name called out on draft day. And being a Collingwood supporter I am, I hope you can meet up with Matt at Collingwood, because we could do with a player like yourself. But look, all the best, mate. Honestly, whichever club you get to, they're going to be very happy to have you. And all the best for the remainder of the final series.
Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks again.
That was Mitch Harvey from North Adelaide in the Sandful there. And speaking of the Sandful, we're next reviewing Adelaide. So just kicking off as to how they performed in 2013. So you'd probably say that was somewhat disappointing, considering they were a kick away from a grand final berth in 2012. They finished this year in 11th position with a 10-12 record, but they were a game away from finishing in the top 8. So, well, thanks to Essendon there. So they weren't far off finishing in the top 8. In terms of their improvements this season, well, they did blood and develop quite a few youngsters, the likes of which were Brad Crouch, Rory Laird, Mitch Grigg, Kyle Hartigan. They all made their senior debuts and showed a fair bit of promise, as well as Luke Brown, Sam Kerridge, Jared Lyons and Lewis Johnston.
Do you think Crouch could have taken out the Rising Star if he played for the majority of the first half of the year?
Yeah, I thought that as well. Yep, absolutely. He was very consistent. I probably thought he was equal in consistency and impact with O'Meara. So it was pretty unlucky. If he played a full season, definitely he would have been right up there. So Brad Crouch, of course, finished second in the Rising Star and averaged 24 disposals in his first year, which is just massive.
That's huge.
Yeah, I wish I got him in Supercoach.
Yes.
I traded him out.
I wish I didn't trade him out so quickly. That's my problem.
Yeah.
But, of course, the injury to Taylor Walker meant that they had to fast-track quite a few of their tall forwards, including Tom Lynch. But he came on and performed quite valiantly, kicked 33 goals in 17 games, including a massive 10-goal haul against GWS in round 7. Others, Lewis Johnston, he was another one who came on late and stood out kicking 11 goals from 5 games, which included a bag of 6 goals and 4 goals in rounds 19 and 22. And Ricky Henderson, which sort of
Henderson.
He stole the limelight for
the show.
for his off-field or change room antics, you could say. But he was another one who broke out. And
what about the Kedge?
Yeah, the Kedge was good as well.
He was good. I think he kicked the winning goal against North, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, threw his name up there in the lights.
Another North Melbourne choke.
In terms of where they struggled, injuries, as I just said, to Taylor Walker and most of their key forwards, which left a massive hole on their side. Taylor Walker doing an ACL in round 5.
It was probably even worse as well, because they obviously lost Tippett the year before. And
exactly right.
Walker goes down.
Yeah, you wouldn't recruit your tools for backup because he's like, we've got Walker and Tippett, we'll be fine, and then boom, gone.
Yeah, it was almost a bit of, I don't know if you'd use the word karma, but it was not ideal.
Don't rot the salary cap.
Exactly right. That's what happens.
Your best forward will go down.
Yeah,
Damon knows what happens when you rot the salary cap.
I know firsthand, and it hurts. It hurts for many years. Josh Jenkins, I thought he struggled at times to perform on a consistent basis. He was quite impressive in his first year, grabbing the limelight at Adelaide. But despite this, he did kick a semi-respectable 24-24, but was pretty inaccurate there from 17 games. Paddy Dangerfield. He's probably their best or most influential player apart from Taylor Walker, and was cruelled by injuries.
Still made the All-Australian team though.
Was a very good effort, but was thrown forward more often than not, and that left a hole in the middle for the Crows.
Especially post-injury as well, he stayed up forward.
Yeah, exactly right. And Sam Jacobs was another one who I thought was quite disappointing. Don't
get me started on his Supercoach year.
Everyone knows. Anyone that had him in their Supercoach team would know how poorly he performed, and was a little bit of a struggler. In terms of sorry, before I start.
No. Yeah, I was about to say that expectations for next year. What are they going to do on the trade table? Obviously, you've got your man from the Blues maybe heading over.
Yes, Eddie Betts.
Betsy boy.
Well, they're going to be looking to push for the top 8 again next season. Injuries aside, of course. I think anything short of a top 8 finish will be probably a failure.
Well, they should, considering they'll have a more favourable draw.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. And Taylor Walker back fit and firing, of course. Hopefully he gets over that ACL injury. But yes, of course, the players that they should be targeting in areas they need to fix. they do need a small forward, and Eddie Betts, as you said, was one that they are rumoured to be chasing, and he has put a price in his head, rumoured to be about $600K, which I think is just way over as a Carlton supporter, and if he's asking for that sort of money, then I reckon we should just let him walk.
Well, Adelaide have only offered him a deal that's not even $2 million. It's close to $2 million over 4 years, so...
It's a lot of security.
It is that's what I thought. The 4 years would far outweigh the extra $100K that he's probably going to get taxed anyway.
Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, how do you think they free up that salary cap? Just do a little bookwork, maybe figure something out.
Well, I don't know. They might have to delist, Richard Tambling, and he's worth a lot of money these days.
Maybe get sponsored by Belfast Pies there. Helped out with Tippett there.
Typical.
But the small forwards is something they're crying out for. Someone to be there crumbing at their tall forwards at their feet. And another area I think they need to address is a midfielder. I think Scott Thompson is at 31 years of age. He will be at the start of next season. His performance is slowly dying down. But apart from him, they've only got Dangerfield, Sloane, and I'd say probably Douglas as the most effective midfielders. And
Scott Thompson as well in that?
Yeah, but he's a bit slow now. You really notice.
This year he was really found out speed-wise, but...
Yeah, along with Scott Thompson, I mean, they're probably their best midfielders, but they do need someone else there because Thompson is coming to the end of his career. So the players that they could be looking at in the free agency period or trade period... Now, it was a bit of a pity that Adam Cooney did sign on for the other Dogs because it was rumoured that they were looking at him and would have been a massive injection there.
South Australian boy as well.
Hair would go well with the Guernsey as well.
That's very good. But yes, Eddie Betts, as we just said. Del Santo is probably one they could be looking at to maybe get on the cheap. And one that's been in the headlines over the past few days, Dustin Martin. They could be bidding for him if
Joyce shakes his head.
No, he's staying, so there's no...
He's still adamant he's staying. He is staying.
I honestly do think he will, despite everything that's been said in the media, and that's not coming from a Richmond bias, that's coming from what I've actually heard. So,
he's Richmond bias, then yeah,
absolutely. But of course, with Martin not being a free agent, they would have to trade for him, and with Adelaide not being in the first 2 rounds of the draft because of their salary cap position, they wouldn't have much to offer Richmond, I don't think.
They wouldn't have anything to offer.
Yeah.
You don't give us Tambling. Richmond screw
you
Adelaide over at the trade table. We traded them Angus Graham for a 10-pick upgrade, and we traded Tambling for their compensation pick for Nathan Bock and a 3rd rounder. Are you kidding me?
Anything for Richard Tambling is a steal in my eyes,
look,
I think.
if McKay's there...
No.
It's not a direct placement, but he has got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And it'd include him and another player and a pick, but I can't see Adelaide having
for
anything
third round
to even...
pick.
Yeah.
No.
And another one they could be looking at, though, it's Richmond there, is I thought Robin Nahas.
Yeah.
As a small forward, if they miss out on Eddie Betts, he's one that probably could fill the need there. He's not the best sort of player, but just there to fill a need, I think. So players to give up. I think Bernie Vince. He's been quite disappointing. I mean, he has had his fair run of injuries.
Favourite son of the Crows, though, they call him.
Yes, good old Bernard. He's got 2 first names there, which is quite alarming, I think, for me.
I don't like it.
No, he's
Never
hiding
trust
something.
a man with 2 first names.
Exactly. Always hiding
John
something.
Anthony, anybody?
Yeah. But he's had quite a few injuries and has contributed to his form slumps over the years and has meant that he's lost his polish, as we saw quite a few seasons ago when he was in the running for the Brown at one stage. Sean McKernan, he's another one who I think he's been rumoured to request a trade back here to Vic. But he hasn't developed as expected, and
well, the Blues have been looking at him.
It was a 2nd round pick initially, so they'd be a bit disappointed, the Crows, on his development.
Yeah, absolutely, and he could be a good fit at it pains me to say Carlton because we are in need of a tall forward, and he could be there. If he finds his form, and I mean he was chosen with a 2nd round pick for a reason, so hopefully he does come on.
What have you got for us for draft wise or something like that?
Because they've only got 3rd and 4th rounders.
Yeah, exactly right. I think their first pick would be about pick 43. I think. But just looking at it, Alex Pearce, I think he's a key position player from Tassie. He could be there around about. It's hard to really say.
He could join his best mate Sam Siggins at West Lakes. That'd be a good... Well, like you said, I reckon another key forward in the ranks. They picked up... They got Sam Siggins as a key defender last year from memory, and Rory Atkins, who they got for a steal, who I had penned in to go around the mid-30s. So, still there, but
Maybe they can do it
think
again.
They'd probably be look. They got some diamonds in the rough last year, and I would back them in to do it again. They've got a very good recruitment department over there, but probably, as you said, Alex Pearce would be strong-bodied key forward.
Yep. Or even so, someone that could play both in the middle and up forward. Dallas Willsmore, I think, is maybe one they could be looking at. He's probably not big enough to play up forward. He's only 190 centimetres, but could be a good fit to play in the middle. He has been compared with, say, a Mitch Duncan. Can do that sort of role, but he was one that came to mind for me.
I like that because I think Willsmore might slide fractionally into the third round at the moment.
And that's about it. But let's head into the next interview with Dwayne Wilson from Sturt from the Sandful.
So we're joined here by Dwayne Wilson from the Sturt Football Club in South Australia. How you doing, Dwayne?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
That's good. First of all, congratulations on being invited to the National Combine. How'd you handle the news?
It was pretty good, actually. Sticks kind of messaged me and congratulated me over a text message, and I was just very happy about it. So trying to put my best foot forward and get ready for the Combine.
Yeah, definitely. And you were a part of the AFL-AIS squad this year. Tell us about the experience over the past 5 months, and what did you gain out of it, and what were some of the highlights of the trip?
Oh, the AIS is just a great experience. It opens a lot of doors, a lot of opportunities. It's just like stepping into AFL footy already, just with how professional you've got to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely when you have like mentors around you, such as Michael O'Loughlin, Mick Ablett, Glenn Jakovich, Matty Lloyd, Brad Johnson, Chris Johnson, just all the superstars of AFL that's already been there and done that, and just to have them handing down the advice they had to us is just extraordinary. Definitely took a lot away out of it, and just on top of it, all the camps that we got to go to was just couldn't ask for anything better. They delivered the goods pretty much, and very lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And you spoke about Michael O'Loughlin. What was it like having him as a mentor for you?
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, Michael is a great guy, but when it's time to be serious, he puts the foot down. So can't afford to muck around, but that's one of his values were treat the ball as like gold. So I've taken that and trying to make every disposal count. And just how AFL is just a cutthroat industry, and how it could just end so quickly. So yeah, he just always tells us that your first impression is the most important. So as soon as you get to an AFL club, or if you're lucky enough, make sure you're there to work from the get-go. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's spot on, man. And your versatility is something that has personally caught my attention. Now, you've played predominantly as a small forward last year, and you made the move to the wing and then half back. That must be pretty encouraging for yourself to excel in all of those positions.
Yeah, definitely. I'm obviously a very lucky person to play multiple positions. I think in today's game, in the AFL, you're going to have to try and play multiple positions. You give yourself a better chance of being picked in the team. I mean, yeah. So, I'm very, very lucky and fortunate to have my talents and my footy smarts to be playing varieties of positions. So that's been pretty good, actually.
Yep. And watching a bit of your football over the years, I can't recall a time where you've fumbled the ball at ground level. Do you think that is one of your biggest strengths?
Yeah, definitely. I've been known as a pretty clean player at ground level. I'm not too sure if that comes from just a personal basketball background, such as like Scott Pendlebury sort of stuff, because I played a lot of local basketball back in Murray Bridge, and yeah, was a pretty handy player, and then just changed to footy, and yeah, footy's just been my number one priority at the moment, and probably will be for the rest of my life.
And you mentioned you're from the Murray Bridge area. What's it been like travelling between Sturt and there, as well as training with the stateside?
Yeah, obviously it's a big commitment that you need to have. I obviously definitely want to get drafted this year. So some days you wake up and you just feel like, I don't really want to do this, but just one of those things you have to do. So yeah, it was tough at times to drive down all the way down to Adelaide, to West Lakes, or to Unley, but there's just things you have to do, just for the bigger picture, I suppose.
Yep, and you've made the move from under-18 football to senior footy with Sturt this year. Now, what has it been like playing against, the older guys and older bodies?
Yeah, well, obviously they're a bit more experienced, a bit more bigger bodies, so I'm going to have to try to bulk up a little bit and get a bit more harder, and just the speed of the game's just increased a bit more since playing under 18. So I thought I'd develop well from that, because my speed is one of my assets to my game, I suppose. So it's been a big change actually from stepping up from 18 to seniors, but it's been good. I've really enjoyed the challenge.
Now, you got to spend a week at the Gold Coast Suns as part of the placement for the AFL-AIS team, and obviously the best player in the league in Gary Ablett's at that club. What did he have to say to you, and what was it like training alongside him for a week?
Oh, Gazza is probably one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. He's the most brightest, polite guy I've ever met. Just a great guy. Fortunately, I didn't really train with him much because he had a calf injury at that moment, so he didn't play the Brisbane Lions the week we went up there. So I did most of the main sessions, but I was staying with Jared Highbrow. He's a pretty good bloke. I'm really grateful for what he's done for me. Let me stay at his house and all that sort of stuff, and take me to footy training and take me to places where I need to be. And he's probably another mentor that comes to mind as well, because before I left, he just said, if you have anything, just don't hesitate to call me or message me. So he's been a great person. But the week at the Gold Coast was just great. The guys there just made you really feel welcome, and I mean, it was fantastic getting drafted there. So it's just unbelievable, guys. They just got around you.
And look, you're averaging 26 disposals, 4 marks and a goal this year for Sturt at under 18 level. But what do you think at the moment is your biggest weakness and something that you might need to work on for the national combine?
Definitely my endurance. My 3K, my beat test is probably the biggest things I'm worried about so far. Probably skin fold testing as well. I need to drop some skin folds. So been trying to eat healthy and just do a bit more extra outside of training, just to get ready for the combine. So my numbers could be through the roof, and just to stick to my strengths, which is speed and agility and kicking test and the clean hands test, which should all go well. But the main things I'm working on is just my endurance and my running power.
Sure. And who so far has had the biggest influence in your career so far?
Most probably my family. They always get me to where I need to be. Like my mum and my stepdad Laurie always take me to places where I need to be, and I guess my Uncle Joffrey and my Uncle Steve have always been there. They're always inviting me over, just talking about footy and how I'm personally going and what I can do better, and just stuff like that. So that's really helped me, and obviously having the AIS with Michael Lachlan, Brad Johnson and that, and just continually asking questions, and they're always there to help me. So I really got a great support group around me. So that's been pretty good.
Fantastic. And just lastly, Dwayne, which AFL team do you currently support?
I go for Hawthorn.
The Hawks. Oh, that's a pretty good club. You'd be pretty happy to be drafted them.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. That'd be very come true if that happens.
All right, Dwayne, thank you so much for joining us on Off-Season Radio, mate. It's been a pleasure to have you.
All right, too easy. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks again.
And that was Dwayne Wilson from the Sturt Football Club in the Sandful. Moving on now to 10th position, and that is the North Melbourne Football Club. Another finish between 8th and 10th for the Kangas. It's
so close.
4 seasons in a row. I think it was 9th, 8th, 10th.
That's going to be painful.
I love it. I love it. They're 9th Melbourne now.
9th Melbourne.
But they were far better than their ladder position indicated. They should have been in the finals, in my opinion, ahead of Carlton. But if not for a lot of close losses.
Are you just saying that because Richmond would have won?
No. Well, maybe at the G. If we weren't playing at Etihad, then, if it was Etihad, they would have won. But they had 10 wins, which was underwhelming for Brad Scott and his Chargers. But, it had a percentage of 120, which is
That was the
very,
fourth
very
best
high.
in the competition as well.
Yeah, and the good North Melbourne and the bad North Melbourne was like night and day, and it was basically determined on whether it was at Etihad or not. And you could really see the mental fatigue that they were under towards the end of the year after so many close losses. They had 10 games that they lost by under 3 goals, which is
a lot.
absolutely ridiculous. Their only blowout losses are against Fremantle and Sydney, and I think that could be excused, given that Fremantle was in Perth and Sydney, I believe, was in Sydney. So,
and they're both playing off for a prelim at the moment.
Yeah. No, so it's not a shame. It's not a
something to be
tragedy,
ashamed of.
to lose to a top 4 side like that. And speaking of top 4, I honestly think they could be a top 4 side as soon as next year. All they need is that mental continuity, that ability to actually run out games and believe that they can win rather than just crumble.
They've got
great
a very
young
good
talent.
side.
Yeah.
Do you think it was just all in the head? Because they do have the talent. I think that was the main contributor behind the last quarter fade-outs was, I think maybe coaching may have had something to do with it, but I think for the players personally, it would have been their mental or lack of mental strength.
Well, a little bit. And if you've got... A great case study is actually from North Melbourne. Lindsay Thomas last year could not kick a set shot to save his life. And this year, he made the All-Australian squad, was a dead-eye regardless of where he was, even on the boundary and even, in the field of play, as well as set shots. I mean, if you can correct something as drastic as that, then surely you can correct some sort of yips that come from the younger players. And obviously, you're going to get, an average of 20 games into your players next year. So they're going to improve. And it's a scary prospect that they are going to improve because you've got Aaron Black, a fourth-year player who...
He's set to boom. He had a very good development year this year.
Jack Darling of this year, in my opinion. Darling burst onto the scene a couple of years ago.
And Hansen moving to defence, that was a masterstroke.
One of the best...
He could have found himself traded because he was struggling for a long time up forward.
Yeah, definitely.
And now he's become a defensive general.
Yeah, and there were actually 4 Kangaroos named in the 40-man All-Australian squad with Goldstein, Thompson, Thomas and Wells. Only Thompson actually made the 22, but the other 3 arguably had their career best years. So with North being a relatively young team, the players will improve as the youth around them improves and matures with more game time, so you can expect those players to get even better, which is a scary prospect. Unfortunately, with Swallow, though, the ruptured Achilles...
That's going to be an issue for them next year.
I think I heard that he's looking to come back in the first month of the year, so not round 1, but around round 4, maybe.
Yep.
Roughhead had about the similar time frame where he was out injured, and he's a big guy. So
and he's a ruckman who pretty much relies on his Achilles for jumping in the ruck. So,
exactly.
And he's come back quite well.
Yeah. As for what they need in 2014, leadership, that would be what they need. So they don't need an actual particular style of player. They've got everything around the ground. They have depth. I mean, they've delisted the worst of the depth in Cam Richardson and Ben Spate, I think.
Gone as well, yeah. And a few more to come,
And a few more to come, yeah. But, yeah, an experienced player or a leader would be beneficial. You'd struggle to think of anybody. Eddie Betts was linked with the Roos, but it seemed much more likely. Yeah, I was going to get to him. Eddie Betts is strongly going to the Crows, but Del Santo would be the number 1, in my opinion. But you'd struggle to see what they trade for him because their number 1 pick is locked with Luke McDonald as a father-son.
And they'd be reluctant to give up their second-round pick because given there's only... you take out Essendon and Adelaide from the first 2 rounds, it's only 18 selections per round this year for the first 2 rounds. So the draft's actually good for the first 2 rounds like it was 5 years ago.
Well, struggling to see what they would give up. I mean, Luke Delaney's been talked about a lot as excess in terms of their key defenders.
Yeah, surplus, yep.
And I think that could be the thing that goes to St Kilda. But obviously that's not good enough for a straight swap. So my trade scenario would be Luke Delaney and North's second pick for Del Santo and the Saints' third pick.
Well, for St Kilda fans, they'd be absolutely rioting if they got Delaney in a third round in a very, very crap draft. You're only looking at about good 30 to 40 picks here.
Oh, yeah, but it would be like a pick 27 or so.
That's their second round, so...
Yeah, so I said North's second pick and St Kilda would give them back
That's what I mean.
Third,
if they had that third... If they gave the third round, you'd basically be getting a half-average key defender who is yet to prove himself with a pair of steak knives.
Yeah.
And for someone like Nick Del Santo...
Yeah, he's a gun player.
Yep.
Just on Del Santo, do you think it'll be beneficial for them, I think, with his experience and whatnot, but do you think him taking a place in the North midfield, do you think it'll be sort of detrimental for the younger players like Bastanak? Cunnington's another one. He'll be taking one of their spots, I think. So do you think it might set them back in their development of the younger players?
Well, not so much Cunnington because they play different roles, but definitely Bastanak, and probably McMillan would be the one that he takes. Or I mean, Mullet showed that he was very capable of playing that half-back wing role. But yeah, McMillan would probably be the one, or Sam Gibson would be the other one that he would replace. But again, I really can't see them doing it because they don't have enough to trade. I'm hearing a lot about North Melbourne's fringe actually being the one that's rated. So the areas between age 20 and age 23, there's a few on the fringe there that might be targeted. Kieran Harper, despite signing a contract pretty recently, he could still be targeted. Levi Greenwood actually had a great end of the year.
He's one for me that would be really good trade bait because although I rate him, and I rate him really highly, and I can't believe for the life of me why he hasn't spent more time playing in that midfield because he's such a prolific ball winner and a good user. I think there's actually... They can do without him, but they can actually get something very good for him. And that's for me where something may... You probably look at someone like a St Kilda and go, well...
Or a Melbourne, maybe.
Yep. I reckon, look, Melbourne would relish a player of Greenwood's hardness, and St Kilda would equally so.
Yeah. And speaking of things from the draft, obviously Luke McDonald's going to them as their first pick. A great utility, can play all around the ground. Probably the best utility in the draft, in my opinion.
He's a 100-metre player.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to describe him. He has got a lace-out kick that goes well and truly over 60 metres, and he can run the ball for at least 40. He is a ripper.
Reminds me of Gary Rowan a little bit, but he has more defensive capabilities.
Much better defensively.
Yeah.
Rowan was actually an elite kick as a junior, still is. I'd still have McDonald. I have McDonald. If he was not a father-son this year, I'd have him inside the top 5.
Yeah,
I've seen so much of his football over the last couple of years, and for the people who keep thinking that North Melbourne will snare him with their second round, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You are so wrong because if you've been down and watched your VFL affiliate Werribee, and you've seen him dominate and completely control and act as the general of the defence at 18 years old or just a tick over, you do not pick up players like that for pick 27 in the draft.
Yeah.
And word was that Gold Coast may even bid on him.
Yeah,
well, Gold Coast
will
bid, and they're in the hunt for a very lucrative young defensive sweeper. Yeah. So... they'd be remiss not to do it.
They've got so much already. Leave it to the other clubs.
I think they want to. I think the Mackenzie's going to transition into the midfield.
Ooh, that'd be good.
So you'd want someone to be taking over his role.
Interesting to see. And as for the rest of the draft, he wasn't taken last year. He could go this year. Dale Garlett, I think, could be heading to North Melbourne.
It'd be huge. I don't know. He's the problem is with Garlett. Is that it's not the fact that, yes, he's a skillful player. It's the fact that he has got very little to no ability to commit and see things out.
Yeah.
He couldn't commit at school. He couldn't commit when he was trying out for, obviously, the Bombers. He decided to go back to WA and get pissed and have an all-night bender.
He even missed, I think it was a scheduled interview with Port Adelaide.
Yep. And there's just so many things that are wrong with Dale Garlett. And I know that he's had a fantastic year in the waffle, but he's also had another relapse. So that's the worst thing. If they do go for him, yeah, you'd say give him 5 minutes with Jack Zeeble and he'll line him out. But... I don't know, the risk there, I mean, when you're looking at risk-reward scenario, I think the risk far outweighs the reward.
Well, yeah, and in a deeper draft, I'd say yes, but they could pick him up with their last pick in the national draft, for example, or even a rookie pick.
Well, look,
he's
to his credit,
of sliding that far.
To his credit, he's actually said he wants to come to Melbourne and play in Victoria.
Yeah.
And he wants to relish that challenge to be able to prove people wrong in the big smoke. So
he is a first-round talent.
He's a top 5 talent. Last year he was top 5.
They have said that he has straightened himself out, mainly due to the fact that he's got himself a girlfriend, which is good to see. I think, is she from Vic?
No. She's a Perth girl. Yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's more
She's got
the point that Garlett's actually moved out of a pretty ordinary area, and has probably separated himself from some equally ordinary friends.
Yeah.
So
Could have his life on track. And in my opinion, he needs to be... If he's in a professional environment, like if he's actually there, not just training to be there, if he's actually there, then he'll think, I don't want to lose this, rather than, if I keep going hard, I'll get this.
Yeah,
So-
like if he's drafted to Melbourne, say, there's no chance he's going to make it. He needs someone to support him. He needs a level head
he
there.
needs to get into the right situation, the right club with a very good welfare area, and probably some equally well-known Indigenous players who have got a very good upstanding in, I guess, as leaders. And I mean, those guys to be talking about would be like a Sean Burgoyne from Hawthorn, for example. Now, if he got to Hawthorn, he would thrive and he would be just another elite player at the Hawks, because when you've got guys like Burgoyne around you, you've got Hill, who's also from WA. You've got Rioli, who's from Northern Territory. You've got a lot of these fantastic Indigenous boys who are equally good off the field as they are on the field. And that's the situation he needs to land in. If he goes to a team like a Melbourne or the Western Bulldogs or something like that, a team that hasn't got those, I guess, that structure that a player like him needs, he's not gonna progress.
Yeah, and that's where I think Daniel Wells comes in, because he's a solid citizen, Daniel Wells, and he's a great player.
Both from WA. Well, Daniel Wells would have been, in my opinion, the best thing ever to come out of Western Australia.
Ooh, big call.
Yeah, well, look, he's draft terms anyway. He was, for me, he's always been regarded as one of the best players ever to come out of WA. Stephen Caniglio would probably give him a good run for his money. And third to that, you've got Garlett.
Yeah.
And it's as clear as day as I can put that. That is how much I rate those three lads. And if he can get to a GWS, or he can get to North, even a Hawthorn, wow.
Yeah.
And obviously the TAC Cup finals are wrapping up this weekend, with obviously the grand final coming up, and we're going to speak to Phil Crooks from the TAC Cup very shortly. But the two preliminary finals, Maddie, we had an absolute ball.
Yeah,
it was a fantastic
so close.
day.
Great games, absolutely great games. Turnarounds. It was an arm wrestle in the second game, but the first game between the Stingrays and the Cannons. Just tell us about that.
Look, I tell you what, I went into this game. Us at TAC Cup Radio, we all jumped on the Cannons for this one. We thought that they'd probably had a bit too much class in the end, despite what we saw in week one from the Stingrays. But I mean, going into this now, three-quarter time for the people out there who haven't seen the game or didn't know the results, the Cannons controlled this game from the onset and throughout, and at three-quarter time, they had the lead by 15 points, and it wasn't until, I mean, how many goals they scored in the last quarter? It would have been about seven. There you go. 7 goals in the last quarter.
7 goals, 6 for the Stingrays.
They came out now. When I went down to the three-quarter time huddle, all I heard was that they were going to run. They were stacking their midfield with their guns. They were rolling the dice, and they were going to leave it all out in the park, and they did just that. They came out and kicked the first 5 goals of the of the last quarter, and completely rattled and dismantled Calder Cannons, and they had no answer. They did give a little bit of fight coming back in, but in the end, I mean, to think that the Stingrays would have won that game at three-quarter time, I wouldn't have guessed it. I thought that the Cannons had too much legs to run it out. But, I mean, Zach Jones, just an absolute... This guy is a beast. He is, I mean, obviously the younger brother of Melbourne's Nathan Jones, and he plays just like him. He is rough, he is rugged, he is hard at it, and he has got some serious speed up his sleeve. But he was fantastic. Another guy, Mullane, also. Blake Mullane has just... a lot of people won't know him because he is predominantly a TAC Cup player, but He for me was very influential when the game mattered the most, especially in the grueling first 3 quarters. But in saying that as well, Nathan Foote, the captain of the Stingrays, just continues to lock down defence, and he's just incredible at what he does. But it was an incredible turnaround. Jordan Bastanak also had a fantastic game. Daniel Caprion had a very, very good game, and Billy Hartung playing off a back flank. And for those of you out there that don't know, Zach Jones and Billy Hartung have actually switched positions. So you've seen Jones play predominantly off a back flank, and now he's gone into the midfield. And we've seen Billy Hartung, who was probably more of an outside player who struggled to get his own ball, has now found this niche off the back flank, and when he gets the ball, he is untouchable. He takes off in those dashing, exciting runs down the wings and off the flanks. It's not one bounce, it's 2 to 3. He is a monster, and it was a fantastic win for the Stingrays.
Yeah, definitely. It got up by 12 points in the end, and yeah, it was sad to see the Cannons go down because they're such finals mainstays, the Cannons.
They are.
I mean,
and they're one of the, as Brian Taylor would say, they are a footy factory. They've just been... They are a prolific football side. Each year they're in the finals, and they always tend to throw up a very good side. But Matty Merlot, hats off to him. He had a fantastic season as captain, and he said it himself on Twitter. They've left a great legacy, and this group of boys will be very proud of what they achieved. And they've got a lot of underage players as well, so there'll be a team that you'll be able to keep your eye on next year as well.
Definitely. And moving on to the second game between the Eastern Rangers and the Geelong Falcons, it was a great game. The final score didn't do it justice at all. It was 37 points in the end, but it felt like it was within 2 goals for the whole game. It was really only until the last quarter that it really blew out. It was 117 to 80 in the end in the favour of the Rangers, so a fair few more scoring shots for them. But it was a shock exit for the other footy factory.
It was. We went into this game as well thinking this is going to be obviously Geelong, and they were going to have quite possibly the AFL side, the VFL side, and the TAC Cup side in the grand final. Yeah. So not to be in the end, it's almost hard to fathom considering how good they've been all year.
Yeah, definitely. And
they did finish on top of the ladder as well, so bit of a shock exit.
And you actually interviewed Tom Boyd at 3/4 time, and he said himself it was the best disciplined side that he's ever seen.
And the physicality. And he had some great things to say.
Yeah, great defensive capabilities and everything like that. So it'll be really interesting to see if he gets up for the grand final. Get the feeling he's being wrapped in cotton wool for a fair bit. So I think we might see
giving me shivers just thinking about him coming into this side. It's got me really excited.
And Mitch Honeychurch as well with that hamstring injury. Hopefully he gets up from that, but it'll be really hard. I wouldn't want to be on the selection committee after that great win.
It'll be tough, isn't it?
You wouldn't want to drop anyone for
I don't know how you're going to drop anyone out of this side because the Rangers for me have been a side that have been galvanised since Boyd went down, and they have really, really stuck tight and played to their strengths and have played as a team. And obviously with Boyd in the side, they're a completely different team. But if they get him in and they get Mitch Honeychurch in, as you said, back from that hamstring injury, the Stingrays are going to have some serious issues on their hands.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, back to the game, I thought the key turning point was the injury to Darcy Gardner. And it really showed because Christian Petracca went absolutely insane after Gardner went off with an injury. It was 4 goals by the time that Gardner got back on the field. And even then, he took a little bit of time to get back into his stride and really, take the game on again because he is by far the best key defender in the draft, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
And it was well and truly over by the time he got back. So best of ground honours would have to go to Christian Petracca.
Without a doubt,
5 goals, 5. Tons of contested ball, contested marking as well.
10 contested grabs for him.
Yeah, compare himself, he's not himself. I compare him to Jake Stringer or Dustin Martin. He has that ability to be a lead-up forward and kick great goals, but he's also got that great midfield ability. Crooksy's got a lot to say about him as well, I'm sure. And he's got this huge size, and he's underage as well. It's ridiculous. He's a mid-sized midfielder, and he weighs 96 kilos.
He's 185 centimetres, 96 kilos, and when I interviewed him as well for TAC Cup Radio post-match, standing next to him, the height-wise wasn't so much... look, I'm not tall by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't feel dwarfed by him by any stretch of the imagination. But looking at him, it was just the width of him. He has got a big rig on him, and he's actually got quite big hands. So... Very big hands, long limbs, and his marking ability. One thing, a big tick for him is his ability to protect the drop, and he's so good overhead. But one thing I can't wait to see of him next year is whether he can start possibly looking to make that proper transition into the midfield because he'll be pretty tight on to make himself a full-time forward at AFL level in 2015.
Oh, that'd be very interesting to see him. Speaking of forwards, other great performers in the game were Matthew Traylor, who kicked 4 goals, And for the Falcons as well, Patrick McCartan and Hugh Goddard, who kicked 3 goals each. Joe Maishman, another underage player, had a great
Well, just
great game.
on that, as you said, if you ever think that Goddard and McCartan would kick 6 goals between them, 9 times out of 10, you would say the Geelong Falcons win.
Yeah, definitely. But it was really the work of the back 6 for the Eastern Rangers. I mean, Daniel McStay had a great game, took an absolute screamer as well.
Oh, didn't he?
Which
Huge.
was great to see. And the captain,
From about 4 or 5 deep as well.
and the captain, Ben Cavara, as well, was absolutely inspirational. Really led from the front, showed his teammates what they needed to do to win. Basically, every single pack, he was at the bottom of it and feeding the ball out, and it was great to see. So it'll be interesting to see the grand final. I'm tipping the Eastern Rangers. It'll be even more interesting if Boyd and Honeychurch can get up. But I think they'll run out with a title for only the second time.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Stingrays. I've from what I've seen of them throughout the final series, I haven't backed them either time, and they've won, and I just can't do it again. But look, in saying that, I'll probably be chopping and changing up until Sunday. But if Boyd and Honeychurch are in, I'm going to have to go with the Rangers, because 2 players of that
Ilk.
I mean, is eliteness a word? There you go.
Quality.
Quality. Look, you can't overlook those 2. They're match winners in themselves. So it'll be really down to moments before the bounce before I make my definitive decision. It will depend on teams.
Yeah. And we're going to go to a quick interview now with Phil Crooks from TAC Cup Radio and see his opinion on the grand final as well as the games from the weekend.
Next up, we're speaking to Phil Crooks from TAC Cup Radio. Crooksy, how you going, mate?
Very good, Paige, and yourself?
Very, very good. Now, obviously, it's a big week ahead. The TAC Cup Grand Final is finally here. Dandenong Stingrays and the Eastern Rangers. What do you make of this game coming up?
Well, I think this year we've spent the last 3 weekends at Visy Park, and we kicked it off 3 Saturdays ago with the Eastern Rangers and the Dandenong Stingrays in the first qualifying final. And we came out of that match really impressed with Dandenong. They really did a number on the Eastern Rangers, and that's our most recent form. And given the nature of the competition during the year with rep footy and school footy, it was a game where all players that were available and fit to play played. So it becomes relevant form to the match. And I've spent a bit of time since the weekend going over that, and the final scores in that game were 14-5 to 8-8, 19 scoring shots to 16, even though the difference was 33 points, I think it was in the end, which was a decisive victory. But that victory was set up in the first half, and the Eastern Rangers actually outscored the Stingrays by a point in the second half. So, and the form we've seen of the Eastern Rangers since that match. I rated the Northern Knights pretty well, and they came out and did a pretty good number on the Northern Knights. And then preliminary final day last Saturday, we all saw what they did to the Geelong Falcons.
That was absolutely sensational by Eastern there. And when they were playing against Dandenong, they absolutely dismantled them, did the Stingrays. I mean, what do you think's the key for if the Eastern Rangers were to get up? Do you think it's to do with maybe one of the big 2 ends, Honeychurch or Boyd?
Oh, very much so. I love a grand final week where you've got will he or won't he play all week, and I suppose we won't probably know till Sunday when the teams run out on the ground. But if Boyd does happen to play, he'll join Michael Apnis, who's he's had a couple of good games in the finals. He's a big unit, and he can leave a big impression on the game. And of course, the boy that stole all the chocolates on Saturday was Christian Petrarca with 5 goals, I think it was 10 contested possessions and marks, and he just really owned the forward line for Eastern, bottom Asia. So
now,
that becomes...
Sorry, Crooksy, with that, while you're on Petrarca just there, who do you think's going to go to him? Do you think someone like a Nathan Foote's going to take on the responsibility and go straight to Petrarca, or do you think that's probably going to, I guess, weigh up depending whether or not Boyd plays?
I think you've got to wait and see if Boyd's playing first and go through. Petrarca's a pretty strong fellow, isn't he?
96 kilos.
96 kilos.
Yeah.
He uses his backside well.
He does, actually.
He does. He really positions and uses his weight well to move his opponent out of the way. Who picks him up? Look, personally, I'm looking for a guy I think is the best swingman in TAC Cup, Daniel McStay.
Yep.
Because I like the way he can play on a tall, or he can play on a small, or he can play up back, he can play up forward. It might not seem the most logical if Boyd doesn't play. I've got a bit confused here. I think McStay is the one that could be the guy that, if Boyd doesn't play, moves up into the forward line, which then makes Dandenong have to think about who they're going to put up and man up in those areas. Whereas if Boyd does play, then McStay will just stay centre-half back all day.
I mean, it'll be a pretty scary prospect for Dandenong, who pretty much had them covered last time. They really nullified the influence of Apnesu, who really only kicked a couple of goals when the game was well and over and done. And obviously McStay was started up forward but had to shift back quickly because of the resurgence of the Stingrays. Correct. But with the forward line there of the Eastern Rangers, if they've got Boyd up there, Petrarca up there, Apnes up there, means that McStay can play more of a defensive role, which I think he's probably more comfortable in and is more effective in my opinion. And it probably allows then, if you've got guys like Boyd and Petrarca and even Honeychurch who'll play up forward as well and roll off the flank, then it could mean that we actually get to see Apnes in his natural position in the ruck, which could be a very, very scary prospect for Dandenong.
Mm.
It is. We've seen Connor O'Sullivan playing the ruck for Eastern the last 3 weeks, and he's been pretty impressive. And I thought he did a very good job on Saturday. The other part with the two midfielders is for those going along, that have got their AFL allegiances and they're looking for someone, players that are quick and can quickly move into the midfield. The Eastern Rangers, to me, just on site, have a smaller midfield. So you've got your Mitch Keedles and your McInerney's and Benny Kavara, who's, they're on the smaller side, where I think Dandenong have got those sort of rougher, tougher Zach Jones, Josh Pickus, Jordan Bastanak. Mullane. They've got sort of bigger bodies, and they sort of suited for finals a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be really important because the tackling's obviously going to be intense, and those taller players are much more able to, get their hands up and free and, fire off the handball really quickly, whereas the smaller players like your Kavara, who even is, exceptional in close, he might have that trouble in a grand final type atmosphere.
And see, another boy that impressed last week was Harms, who did a lot of work through the centre, and Dandenong might have the numbers in the midfield, and that's what sort of makes it a juicy grand final to talk about. I think Dandenong might win it in the midfield, but Eastern Rangers have the potential to be really dangerous up forward. And if the supply mightn't be as great as what Dandenong can supply their forward line, but they might be able to convert a little bit better.
And just quickly as well, Crooksy, what have you made of Zach Jones's transition into the midfield this final series? We've seen him play predominantly off half-back throughout the year, and he won the MVP for Vic Country playing off a back flank. But since that, I guess he and Hartung have switched positions, if you'd almost have that, is that, Hartung's playing off a flank now, and Jones has been able to not only dominate the midfield, but he's been able to display a few attributes that probably a few people didn't know he had, such as, his vision and his awareness and his burst of speed away from stoppages, especially in a contested situation. I think that's probably going to be a bit of a talking point for Dandenong for me, and someone that maybe the Rangers will probably have a few headaches with.
He's really relished the final series, Zach Jones. So every time you hear someone talk about recent draftees, they talk about players that really put their hand up during the final series, and he probably takes the cake this final series for this. His move into the centre is... A couple of my mates have asked me, what's he like? And he doesn't look like his brother, but he plays a similar role to his brother, or a Brad Sewell, or that sort of really rugged, get the ball on the inside, and then when he gets free on the outside, he's got the skill and class to sort of deliver the ball, not waste a possession, can break tackles as well and run lines. So, and the other part, the bonus for the Dandenong Southern Stingrays is Billy Hartung off the halfback flank. Have you seen a bloke enjoy a run and a bounce more than him?
I don't think I actually have. He every time we've called the game during the final series, and he doesn't necessarily just take one bounce. He likes to take 2 to 3. So if he can get on a few of those exciting dashing runs, and he'll relish those wings at Etihad Stadium and those big flanks as well, he could do some serious damage and set up a lot of attack for the Stingrays. But who do you tipping for the grand final, and who's going to win the TAC Cup medal?
I should, if Stangers is listening, I shouldn't tell you and make people buy the footy record on the weekend. But for our friends, I've actually decided I'm going to go for the Eastern Rangers. I think they'll win by 18 points. And I'm going to go for my swingman. I think Daniel McStay might be the man that leaves the biggest impression on the grand final this week. And it'll be their second premiership in their history if they can get over the line. And Dandenong have been to the big dance 4 times in the last 22 years and for 4 runners-up. So I'm sure...
there'll be a lot of emotion in this one.
There'll be a bit of an emotion. And as with in any footy, isn't it good when there's a bit of a rotation of teams in grand finals and it sort of gets, it just sort of opens it up for everybody. So I think... it'll be good either team that wins. They've been 2 really good, well-run clubs. I think the coaches are interesting. Don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure Graham Yates playing in a back pocket would have played on Darren Buick in a forward pocket.
You're actually very right. I was actually going to say that, but you've taken the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, well, I'm being a Bomber supporter. I'm pretty sure I saw Darren Buick running around in a forward pocket, kicking many goals on Graham Yates. But they've both been in the system a fair time. I think Graham Yates has been there 10 years at Dandenong and produced a lot of good footballers. Both clubs have. So, and I'm sure there'll be. For those that don't get a chance to see the under-18s, it's a fantastic brand of footy to watch. And there's a lot of players there that'll be on the ground on Sunday that you'll be seeing playing in AFL jumpers next year.
Beautiful. Thanks very much for joining us, Crooksy. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you on Sunday. The TAC Cup Grand Final kicks off at 10 a.m. You can listen live via the Red Sports iPhone app, which is free to download. Or, of course, you can watch us on TV, which is at the taccup.com.au, and Crooksy, Gabe and Rick will be calling, and I'll be there with my ugly mug down on the boundary line. So it's going to be a good day.
And also the other big in is we've got a match day analyst in the coach of the Northern Knights, Marco Bello.
Oh, we do have... we do, yes.
So we've recruited Paige just to up our IQ, and now Marco's going to put us right through the roof. He'll be very good. Last year we were lucky enough to have Anthony Allen, coach of the Knights, come in.
Yes,
and,
yes, exactly.
It's a terrific revelation just to have a coach in there. So just see the game just a little bit differently to what everyone else does. They can sort of pick the trends and all that kind of stuff that are coming. So it should be a beaut day. Looking forward to it, guys.
Well, can't wait. We'll see you then, Crooksy. All the best till then, mate. I hope you sleep because I won't.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit that way. Good on you.
Thanks, Crooksy. And that was Phil Crooks from the TAC Cup Radio. Again, you can listen to us at TAC Cup Radio this coming weekend on Sunday, 10 a.m. kickoff for the grand final between the Dandenong Stingrays and the Eastern Rangers. You can listen live via the Red Sports iPhone app, or you can stream and actually watch the game on taccup.com.au.
That'll be great to see. We'll be at the game, though, so that'll be even more
interesting. We
interesting.
will, and I'll be down riding the boundary line, and I might take a footy down there and
rubbing shoulders
kick
with all
a
the
goal.
stars.
I'm gonna warm up Tom Boyd. I'm gonna just deliver a few nice lace out passes just to get his hands all warmed up. So
yep, yeah. And it should be a cracking grand final, and that's about it for this week. But next week, we've got our Phantom Draft. We're starting with that. And
we decided to delay that because we've had so much going on, but I think with 2 more teams getting knocked out of the finals next week, probably gives us a better indication of the final standings for the first round. We're going to start with the first round and then go on to the second and the third with the coming weeks. So stay tuned to that, all you draft lovers out there.
And as well, we'll also be covering Essendon, Richmond and Collingwood in our list analysis for next week.
Biggest, and we've got a very special guest on next week as well, who falls in line.
Mystery guest?
Mystery guest.
Yeah,
we're gonna leave it open.
never know
We'll
who it
announce
is.
it next week.
Could be a squirrel, for all you know.
Yes, exactly. Squirrel skiing.
The weapon's coming in to tell his side of the story. So
No, he's not.
Say that again.
Yeah. But that's about it
We're outta
for
here.
this episode of Off-Season Radio. See you guys.
we'll see you next week.
Catch up.